Yeah, so on the topic of war, I would just say that it ties in with existentialism, because if you truly believe in existentialism or relativism, I suppose, then I suppose it's difficult to have a war, because a war is always over a belief system. It might be that the belief system that if you threaten to kill my village, I'm going to kill your village, or if you threaten to take my land, I'm going to go and kill you. These kind of belief systems that I suppose I'm not really sure if the participants might not even realize that they are belief systems, because they might just see it as inherent in their survival to the point where it's beyond belief systems, but they are just belief systems. And if you, I suppose if you believe that all belief systems are valid, and you have more of a concept of, rather than killing the people that are in an area where you want to be, that you find incompatible with you, I find that the better solution is to just find a way that you can live with them or move away from them, rather than to mutually try and kill each other. And though somehow most people in the world believe that it is the best solution to go and kill each other, I think that perhaps if there was like, and see, this is where the Bohemians, who have not really actively properly participated in any acts of war for the last 500 years, and this is in the middle of Europe, which is just wars all the time. I think we believe that the very concept of feeling threatened that somebody's taking your land or taking over your government is a sort of an absurd concept, because it's either going to be that person in charge or that person, and you can always just live under that new regime, or you can run away from that regime, which I've done both. And I feel that that's a lot better than just the Ukrainian way and the British and most other countries, which, if they were taken over like we were taken over by the Ottomans, then the Turks, we were taken over by all the different were taken over by the Nazis, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, were taken over by the Russians, Americans. Yeah, so basically it just ends up that to a Bohemian, if Russia, like we had the invasion of our country by Russia in 1969, and basically they came, the same as they came to Ukraine, and there wasn't any shots fired, there was nothing. There was a few people that were upset a little bit, whatever, but there's definitely no war, because for one, we realized that it would be a futile war to fight against one of the biggest armaments in the world, and we would only suffer through that. And so the decision always was that we would just let Russia do whatever they want. And to every Bohemian, that's not a difficult concept, because we've done that with Nazis, we've done that with every single invader that's come through us, and we just have this. And I think that the reason why we have it is that everyone who didn't have it was killed by the innumerable invaders that have happened throughout history. Because we're right in the center of Europe, every invader that's ever come has come through our country, right? So everybody that doesn't have this philosophy that I'm just about to mention of a Bohemian just was killed. And so those genes were no longer there. These kind of genes that wanted to be like, no, this is my land and I will kill you for it, and all these kind of things that are so foreign to Bohemians. The way we see it is that we don't sort of see that you can take away our culture, or the fact that we're Bohemian. You can't take that away. Like we in fact didn't even exist as an official country for till just recently, because for us, it's an absurd concept to be thinking that some invader is somehow going to take away our like the fact that we're like Bohemians or something. They're like, he can't take that away. Like, that's just something that's impossible to remove. And so for us, when an invader come, be it the Ottoman Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, or the Nazis, or the Russians, or the Americans, whoever came along, we would just happily just adopt their sort of things that they set that we had to do, and adapt to that lifestyle and find a way to live within that, which was never any different than any of the other regimes. So whether it be the Russians coming in with their culture, or the Germans, or that they would just have different ways of living, and we just go, okay, well, so, we just go along with that, and we just make our little family and our family group and our sort of friend group live within the context of that new environment politically, which usually didn't actually mean much day-to-day difference. Like, really, day-to-day differences of a foreign government coming over and taking over your country is actually quite minimal, because it's always going to be some corrupt politician that's doing some corrupt politics, and whether they're from this country or that country or this or that, it really doesn't matter day to day to that person who has as their job like selling cars or doing this or whatever. It really makes no difference. So we realize that, and we're not in that concept of like, oh, I'm going to go and kill all of those people that have come over. And so basically when Russia invaded us, just like it did with Ukraine, except that it was decades ago, but no difference in terms of they were still the same people, and we just let it happen, like no problem. They came, they went, a few years later, nobody died, nothing got blown up, there was no casualties, there was no disruption of the day-to-day life, there wasn't people for losing their fathers, their sons, and their grandfathers or grandsons or whatever. There was none of that. We just were like, yeah, whatever, we'll just put along our day-to-day life. Because when you think about it, what difference does it make what the name of the current government is? Like, it really is, it's just of some trivial kind of philosophical, political kind of a intellectual concept, where you still have to go to work and you still have to do your thing, and that doesn't really change anything, for that little nobody Joe Blow that cleans toilets or whatever. It's irrelevant, and so therefore it's definitely not worth killing people or fighting against one of the biggest armaments in the world. And getting slaughtered and having everybody die and losing all your infrastructure, and like it just really seems absurd to a Bohemian to go to war. It really does. I think that what the Ukrainians did by trying to fight Russia is just they really just set themselves up for a lot of damage and a lot of deaths that could have easily been avoided just by like adopting to the new ways, which really would have just mean a change in the names of the government, which really happens anyway. So it's like, I think it's of trivial sort of intellectual value of who's actually ruling a country. Just adapt and adopt to the new ways. And so as Bohemians, were known throughout the world as poets and artists, and you can't really get a Bohemian to fight and go to war, because if the government tells us or would tell us to go to war, we just go like, well, you go to war. Like, you know what I mean? What am I going to go and go out there somewhere and kill somebody I don't know because you've got some problem with them, and they're gonna kill me because you got some problem with it. I'll just putt along and do my day-to-day thing and whatever. And yeah, so that's the way I view it. It's a more of a peaceful way that doesn't end up in everyone trying to kill each other, which I think is just absurd. Yeah. So that's the Bohemian concepts on war.